Hi, I'm Susie Garden, and this is the Ageless and Awesome podcast. I'm an age-defying naturopath and clinical nutritionist, and I'm here to bust myths around women's health and aging so that you can be ageless and awesome in your 40s, 50s, and beyond. The Ageless and Awesome podcast is dedicated to helping women through perimenopause and menopause with great health, a positive mindset, and outrageous confidence. Hit subscribe or follow now, and let's get started. Hello, gorgeous one, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ageless and Awesome podcast. It's great to have you here for today's episode. Today's episode, the topic kind of sounds a little bit boring, I have to admit, but it's really important, and particularly if you're someone that's looking at weight loss, if you are a perimenopausal woman, or if you're someone that has inflammation in your body in the form of, for example, an autoimmune disease or body pain, joint pain, any of the arthritises, rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, any of the kind of autoimmune conditions as well, it is important to really understand what inflammation is and how it impacts your body. And even though you might be thinking, well, this doesn't apply to me, I don't have any of this. Everybody has inflammation in their body. It's part of our modern lifestyles. And when they compare people who live in Western countries to people that live that more kind of traditional lifestyle, the inflammatory markers they actually measure in our blood are way higher in those of us in Western countries. And that's even if you don't have any kind of diagnosed inflammatory disease. So I'll try and keep this as interesting as I can, but I do think it's important because I talk a lot to people on the pre-screening calls and to my clients about this because one of the main reasons I am talking about it, it is a really common blocker to weight loss and it promotes weight gain. So a lot of women that are coming to see me are like, I'm doing all the things I normally do and I just can't stop putting on weight. Inflammation is one of the factors. And the thing is too, ladies, if we are in perimenopause and our estrogen is dropping, estrogen has an important anti-inflammatory role in our bodies. And we have estrogen receptors all over our bodies. And so when our estrogen is dropping, it gives us things like body pain, plantar fasciitis in the feet, hip pain, knee pain, all kinds of other pain. So, it's important to understand why this is happening so you can do something about it, and often there's actually some really simple things you can do. So let's get started. So firstly, I wanted to talk a little bit about what inflammation is because, we have inflammation for a reason, right? It's there as part of our immune response when we hurt ourselves, mainly. So if you get a cut or an abrasion, you may notice it gets a little bit red. If it gets infected, you'll get pus and things like that. But there'll be heat, there might be some swelling, and that is our inflammatory response because our immune system is sending extra blood flow with nutrients and parts of our immune system, different types of blood cells, to go in and fix the problem, right? It works short term to fix an initial acute issue, and that's it. And it does its job. It does its job really well. Same if we get like a virus or a bacteria or something like that. We have an inflammatory process in our body that will help our body to fight off a bug of some kind. This is the really good thing about inflammation. And it's part of our cave person, I guess, response. It's been around for a really long time. So why is it working against us? Well, the kind of inflammation I'm talking about that works against us is chronic inflammation. And chronic inflammation is a little bit more complicated, and it can be triggered off by a whole bunch of different things, such as stress. Stress can absolutely increase inflammation in the body, environmental toxins, and we are exposed to this every single day. If you're handling FPOS receipts, if you are filling up your car with petrol, all these sorts of things. If you're having fruits and veggies that have been sprayed with pesticides. So all of these things can increase inflammation in our bodies. Also, if you have a poor diet, if you're eating lots of trans fats, lots of junk food, sugary food, absolutely that will cause inflammation. And pretty much all of us has a degree of this in our bodies. And even if you don't have additional weight on because of this chronic inflammation, it's really important that you try and do as much as you can to lower inflammation in your body, because you've heard me say this before if you're a regular listener. Inflammation is the root cause of pretty much any physical or mental health issue, including things like cardiovascular disease, including some of those inflammatory conditions I spoke about, including like mental health issues like depression. There's a definite link with anxiety with inflammation through our gut-brain connection. So it's really important that we are controlling inflammation in the body so that we're keeping ourselves healthy long-term. And you can kind of, think about that short-term inflammation as it happens to like a brief necessary inflammatory response, because we do need it. Chronic inflammation, on the other hand, it lasts longer. It happens internally. It happens over a longer period of time, and it's in response to a larger problem in the body. This is something, if we can get a handle on it and we can keep our baseline inflammation lower, it will reduce our risk of getting some of these other illnesses, and it will also help us maintain a healthy weight, which is really important for long-term health. And the thing is, if you've got chronic inflammation, it's almost 100% of you will have digestive issues. And one of those digestive issues is something called increased intestinal permeability, or leaky gut. You might know it as. So when you have this increased intestinal permeability or leaky gut, it damages the digestive tract as well as other body organs and functions, and things like your joint pain, headaches, lack of energy, bloating, weight gain, chronic constipation or diarrhea, thyroid issues, food allergies and intolerances in particular, all common symptoms of leaky gut. You can actually get a urine test to test for it, but I tend to just go by symptoms and treat or manage leaky gut in that way, unless people want to pay for the testing, of course. And interesting research shows that this leaky gut syndrome also results in diabetes and obesity as well. So it's really important to look after your gut. So some of the common kind of causes of chronic inflammation I mentioned before: eating too much sugar, and most of us do, and all processed food. So that's like breakfast cereal, anything that comes in a box really. Those sorts of foods often have a lot of chemicals in them to keep them shelf stable. So preservatives and things like that, additives to make them feel better in your mouth, believe it or not. Colors, flavorings, all that sort of stuff causes inflammation. Also pesticides, we know that. And we know that, obviously in many cases, depending where you're from, pesticides can sometimes be necessary to keep the crops, able to grow to a point where they can be harvested. But yeah, if you're not really washing all of those pesticides off your food, you're getting exposure to them. Of course, ideally organic food is going to be pesticide free, so that's awesome. But for many people, that's not necessarily going to be accessible. So yeah, if you can wash all the the pesticides off your fruit and veggies, then that is absolutely ideal. And, environmental pollution like poor air quality, impure drinking water can also increase inflammation in the body. If you have an infection or an injury that hasn't been treated properly, that can lead to chronic inflammation, obviously I mentioned before, autoimmune disorders like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, type 1 diabetes even, and long-term exposure to air pollution, industrial chemicals, other irritants are also, are common causes of chronic inflammation. And, smoking comes into that. If you're currently a smoker, that will definitely increase your inflammation because of the toxins in the cigarettes. Alcohol is another one, unfortunately. Chronic stress, nutritional deficiencies, and obesity all contribute to chronic inflammation. And chronic stress also increases cortisol, which is one of our stress hormones, which has been linked to higher amounts of belly fat, and deficiencies in vitamins B6, B12, vitamin D are also linked to inflammation and weight gain. And I test vitamin D in the majority of my clients, and so many, I reckon at least 40% would be vitamin D deficient, and significantly so. And that's because where I'm from in Queensland, we were trained from a very early age to use sunscreen and block sun contact on our skin. And a lot of us, of course, work inside, so we're not getting a lot of exposure. It is really difficult to stay inflammation-free in our world. However, there are plenty of ways we can decrease our chronic inflammation while supporting efforts to lose weight. So, this is fantastic. So we do that a lot with food. I do that particularly with the GLOW protocol using metabolic balance and personalized nutrition. One of the key principles of that is about lowering inflammation in the body. And so, drinking plenty of water to help get all the toxins out of your body, having fresh antioxidant-rich fruits and veggies. So particularly the dark colored ones like blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, your dark leafy greens, orange foods, wild caught fish, organic meats, not too much red meat. We know red meat is inflammatory. The Australian dietary guidelines are no more than 3 serves a week, which probably for the average Australian, that's probably not happening. They're probably having way more than that. Also things like cruciferous veggies. Cruciferous veggies really support liver health. So things like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, things like mushrooms, olives, green tea, all of these sort of foods are going to reduce inflammation in your body. Having good gut health. So if you have things like bloating, chronic constipation, chronic diarrhea, pain, reflux, heartburn, excessive burping, excessive flatulence, any of these things are saying and telling you that your gut is not happy, and you've probably got a degree of low-level inflammation going on in the gut. And so really improving your gut health by addressing those issues is imperative for 2 reasons. One, if you're wanting to lose weight, and secondly, if you've got chronic kind of diseases in your family, you've already got a risk factor there. So you want to make sure you're keeping yourself as low risk with the things you can control, like your gut health. And I know one of the questions that always comes up when I talk about gut health is, what about probiotics? And if you've been listening to me for a while, you know that I've got some very strong opinions on probiotics based on research. And that is, you should really only be taking probiotics if you are directed to by a healthcare professional. Probiotics can absolutely improve gut health and reduce inflammation, but as a qualified health practitioner myself with training in probiotics, it's very clear that we do not want to be putting massive doses of huge spectrums of probiotics in our gut. We want to be very specific about the probiotics we're putting in there because they do interact with your own gut bacteria and they can be problematic. I get a lot of people come to see me that have been on probiotics for a year or two on really high dose, just stuff they're grabbing at the supermarket or the pharmacy for no other reason than they thought it would be a good idea. And yeah, it can cause a lot of problems. So I would say to you, if you want to get your probiotics from food, so things like kombucha and yogurt and kefir and things like that, you're probably not going to be able to drink and consume enough of that to cause much of a problem. But if you're taking things like these large doses of, 10 billion bacteria with a huge range of strains that can be problematic. So I do not recommend that. In terms of inflammatory foods, I've probably mentioned a lot already, but some that I haven't mentioned, I guess things like artificial sweeteners, MSG, some of the really mass-produced dairy products can be a little problematic, I think. And particularly many adults are actually lactose intolerant and don't really know it. Like I get a lot of people come and say to me, I can have one flat white a day and then I'm okay. But more than that, I feel gross and bloated if I have any more kind of milk. So I would really suggest for many adults, you're probably not tolerating milk very well. And that means that you're setting yourself up for low-level inflammation in your gut, which is not great. Sugar, gosh, I can't. I mean, this is not rocket science, right? Like sugar, we know is not good for us. I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love sugar, but I really, really avoid it as much as I can. And so, yeah, if you can get as much sugar, and I'm not just talking about putting sugar in things, I'm talking about all of the hidden sugars that are in food. And again, that's why having a whole food diet where it's not processed foods that's a great way to avoid unnecessary and hidden sugar in the diet. What else? Let's talk about how to reduce inflammation. So obviously what you're eating. I've talked a little bit about that already. So, really removing the foods that cause inflammation and having more and more of the foods that help to combat it. Also, things like getting your sleep sorted out. We know people that don't sleep well tend to have increased inflammation in their bodies. And sometimes the increased inflammation can cause a sleep disorder. So that's something I really notice when I start people on the Glow protocol is that within a week or two usually, depending on what's going on in their bodies, but often people report their sleep will improve dramatically, and it's because we've reduced the inflammation in their bodies. Also, what else? Stress management is a big one. We know you can't always control the amount of stress that's going on around you. So the objective of stress management is to help your nervous system respond to it in a way that is helpful and not harmful. That's the gist of it, really. And it doesn't need to be anything, super over the top. It's just deep breathing. It's spending some time out in nature, getting some sunlight on your skin. That always feels good. Spending time with people you enjoy spending time with, laughing. All of this is great stress management. It doesn't have to be a really super complicated meditation practice or anything like that, although that is good. I'm not going to say that's not going to work because it will, but things that you're going to enjoy and can easily incorporate into your lifestyle are going to be the best kind of things to help you manage your stress. What else do I want to say in this topic? Of course, there are some supplements you can take to help fight inflammation. Things like fish oil supplements are pretty good, but you need to make sure you're getting a good quality one. So make sure you're looking at your bottle. Has it been tested for heavy metals? Has it been tested for microplastics? All of that sort of thing. But really, if you're having at least 3 serves of fish a week, and that's the Australian Dietary Guidelines recommendation, then, you may not need fish oil. But if you've got cardiovascular disease in your family, you're over 40, you're carrying some extra weight, it's probably not a bad idea. Turmeric is another one that we use in the natural health world for lowering inflammation. The thing is with turmeric, it's really hard from a dietary point of view. It's hard to eat enough turmeric to make a difference because, oh my gosh, I mean, if you've tried fresh turmeric, it really burns. It burns. It's not something that it's easy to take big doses of. And the supplementation form of turmeric, you really, again, have to be very careful with the brand to make sure that it is actually a decent dose of turmeric and that it is what we call a bioavailable form. which means it's able to be absorbed well from your body, because turmeric and the curcumin is renowned for not being easy for your body to absorb. But there's been some fantastic research done in turmeric, and definitely a great anti-inflammatory supplement. Resveratrol is another one. That's the one that's found in red wine and dark chocolate that people really love, of course, that we can have those sort of things to reduce inflammation. But, there's been a lot of kind of discussion, particularly about the red wine aspect of it, because there is alcohol, obviously, which can be damaging to our cells and our DNA. The thought really is that you're not getting enough resveratrol to offset that damage. So I can't really recommend that. But resveratrol, again, in supplementation form, you can get a high enough dose to actually make a difference, which is awesome. Green tea is probably the final one that I'll mention, because you can have green tea as a drink. That's always a good option. You'd have to have a fair bit, again, to get the polyphenols and the good stuff out of the green tea. But you can also take green tea supplements, which can be beneficial for those that don't like green tea. I personally feel like it tastes like sweat. So it's not for me, but lots of people really like it. So that's great. That would be probably how I will finish up. As I said, like if you are overweight or in that category of obesity, you undoubtedly have a chronic level of inflammation in your body, and that is going to be working against you. So having things like a personalized nutrition plan that is going to address that specifically, because when I do the nutrition in the Glow protocol, it is based on science. It is based on the inflammatory markers in your blood, as well as many other blood markers, to make sure that the nutrition plan that you're getting is absolutely ideal for you to bring your body back into balance, to reduce inflammation, to balance your blood sugar and your glucose, so that you are bringing your hormones into balance and you are losing weight and reducing that inflammation to a point where if you do have a chronic disease, a lot of those symptoms can be relieved. So if you're thinking, I need to do something, we're in mid-February now, and the time is going so fast. And if you're thinking, I don't want to be like this time next year, you need to take action. I speak to people every single day on pre-screening calls that are just like, I'm so sick of feeling like this. And, no one's going to come to save you. One of my gorgeous coaches that I've worked with, there's something she used to say to all of us in the group all the time: no one is coming to save you. You need to save yourself. So book in for a pre-screening call with me. I love talking to people. I learn so much. And so please, there's no obligation. I'm not pressuring you to sign up to the program on the call. I want to know, what's going on for you. And are we a good fit to work together? And is this program actually something you want to do? So please book in. There's a link in the show notes, or you can message me at Susie Garden Wellness on Instagram, or you can email me hello@susiegarden.com. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I've tried to make it as simple as I can. I actually really, really love talking about inflammation. When I first learned about it at uni, I was like, oh my gosh, I wanted to put together a program. I actually named it Low Inflammation Life, and I was just going to that's what I wanted to do. And it was just too hard to explain to people what this actually is. So I, found another way to do it, which is through the Glow protocol. But yeah, I absolutely love and am passionate about this topic, because if we can reduce inflammation, we can reduce illness, we can reduce cancer, we can reduce heart disease, and that is a great thing. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. I hopefully will be back on Thursday with Q&A. Have an awesome week, lovely people. Thanks so much for joining me today on the Ageless and Awesome podcast. If you liked today's episode, please make sure you click the little plus button if you're on Apple Podcasts, or the follow button if you're on Spotify, so that you can get each new episode delivered to you every single week. If you like free stuff, and who doesn't, then head over to susiegarden.com and grab my 8 essential age-defying secrets every woman over 40 should know right now. Or if you'd like to continue the discussion, head over to Instagram and DM me at Susie Garden Wellness. I'd love to connect with you.